I've now farmed up to level 88 on my rapid fire rogue, and I've made some significant changes since the last video. Changes that have made this build overperform hugely. It's one of the fastest builds I've played in the game so far. It has incredible damage, it's surprisingly tanky, and we managed to fit in a source of unstoppable. These changes have made it possible for me to speed run through dungeons up to 18 levels above my character. So in this video, we're going to do a recap on any changes I've made from the previous build guide, as well as do a deep dive into the Paragon board and choices I've made, as well as give you guys an idea of what roles you're going to want to look for on gear that you find. So let's talk about my Barber rapid fire rogue build. Starting first of all with the helmet, we have stuck with the aspect of might to give us 20% damage reduction. And as for the modifiers to look for on a helmet, life gain on kill is essential for some sustain. Cooldown reduction is also a must, and then look for anything like total armor, maximum life. You can even get things like plus levels to shadow imbuement on your helmet. They're all going to serve you very well. The chest, this is where I fit in a new aspect. We're using aspect of the cheat. What this does is it causes crowd controlled enemies to deal up to 25% less damage to us. This is very powerful because if we activate our cold imbue and then dash into a huge pack of enemies, well, we're going to CC everything. So all the mobs are going to deal less damage to us, and then we can cool them down with our rapid fire. As for rolls on the chest, look for any form of damage reduction. The best options being flat damage reduction from close enemies, damage reduction from distant enemies, and then total armor or life. If you really want damage and you don't mind being on the squishier side, you can absolutely get dexterity on your chest. For the gloves, we've stuck with aspect of accelerating. This causes our critical strikes with core skills to increase the attack speed by 24%. This is amazing for rapid fire as it will make those additional shots come out faster. As for rolls, you want up to +4 levels of rapid fire, attack speed, crit, and critical strike damage with imbued skills. Contrary to most other builds, we don't actually care about lucky hit chance, as the mobs being immune means we cannot actually lucky hit them. So lucky hit chance is completely useless on this build. For the legs, we have the disobedience aspect, giving us up to 30% additional armor. And for the rolls, we want any form of damage reduction. Very much like the chest, we have damage reduction from distant enemies, damage reduction from close enemies. And then on this one, I have injured, but a better case would be total armor, life, or again, if you don't mind being on the squishier side, grab yourself some dexterity for more damage. Now, as for the boots, again, we're sticking with the quickening fog, which will allow us to activate our trickery malignant heart. Smoke grenade is a subterfuge skill, and it does trigger the heart. So when you dash, you're going to leave behind a shadow clone that will taunt all the mobs for you. This, I believe, counts as a CC, so all the additional damage you have to CC'd enemies will apply to these mobs, making this a great pickup. For the modifiers, move speed is a must. We want as much move speed as possible so we can blast through these nightmare dungeons as quickly as we can. We have 23% move speed. Dodge chance is very nice. Movement speed on killing an elite, we can get up to 42%. This is huge. And then dexterity at the final mod. You could get levels to dash, any form of damage reductions, or any attribute that you need in order to reach a Paragon board breakpoint. For the two-handed weapon, I did experiment with using a bow, but the damage just isn't there compared to a crossbow. The speed is very nice, but I have returned to using a crossbow. We have one here with vulnerable damage, crit strike damage, critical strike damage with imbued skill, and dex. I would argue this is almost perfect. This is exactly what you want on your weapon. We have this imprinted with the rapid fire aspect. Edge masters would be more damage, but in a nightmare dungeon clearing scenario, having this extra chance to ricochet is very, very strong, and it's going to increase your clear significantly and swap your edge masters onto your amulet, as you see here. The amulet, well, we have a pair of boots on our amulet. We have move speed on killing an elite, weapon mastery, and cooldown reduction. A better option over weapon mastery is actually exploit. Exploit interacts very well with the Barber, as enemies will always be healthy. Alternative things you can get is percent dexterity and any form of damage reduction. For the first ring, we're using the aspect of corruption, which increases the potency of our imbued skills. This one is the only one that I might consider changing. Keep an eye on the builder in case I do update something. But as for the rolls, this is going to be the same for both rings. You absolutely want critical strike chance, vulnerable damage, and crit damage. The fourth mod would ideally be either maximum life or critical strike damage with imbued skills. And the second aspect on this ring here is the rapid aspect, which increases the attack speed of our basic skills so that we build combo points faster. Then we've stuck with the aspect of the expectant on our one-handed sword. This is great for combo point builds, as you ideally would be basic attacking 3 times before casts of rapid fire anyway. With this build in particular, as mentioned in the last video, it is okay to just attack once with your basic skill and then rapid fire, because you do more than enough damage that way. But in a situation where you have to kill a boss or a tanky pack of elites, absolutely build to 3 combo points. You're going to get 30% more damage from this aspect and all the benefits of your combo points on top. As for the modifiers on this weapon, it's the exact same as our two-hand. You absolutely want vulnerable damage, critical strike damage, dexterity, And this fourth mod would ideally be critical strike damage with imbued skilled in a perfect scenario. I have core skill damage for now. Hopefully we get a better one later. But you can settle for things like core skill damage, damage to close enemies. These things that are going to apply very often are going to be good. And then finishing it off, we have the one unique that I'm using in the build, which is Condemnation. This enables us to play this one combo point build playstyle, as when we use a basic attack, we have a 30% chance to build 3 combo points instead of 1. So that's why we're using the Condemnation, and obviously it gives us up to 40% increased damage when we do spend 3 combo points. So again, against those bosses, those elites, you're going to be doing a ton more damage. For the specialization, as I mentioned, we are using combo points. This is pretty standard for most rogue builds right now. Inner Sight and Prep just don't really do anything for my version of the build. Now, in this part of the video, we're going to go over the skill tree, and I'm going to outline changes from the previous version. So if you need the full version of this skill tree, head into the description and grab the builder and check there. First of all, we've swapped out improved rapid fire to advanced rapid fire. Someone nicely pointed out that improved rapid fire doesn't actually work with the Barber. So I was just maintaining energy even without this. Advanced rapid fire adds a unique element to the playstyle of this build where you're going to want to evade frequently to keep up this 30% more critical strike damage modifier. The next big change is we've dropped smoke bomb points and gone into concealment as a source of unstoppable and additional movement speed, and we've grabbed countering stealth and enhanced stealth. This allows us to also get mending obscurity so that we regen HP while stealth. So if you're in a big pack of enemies and you suddenly get CC'd, just press your concealment and you're going to be absolutely fine. Go heal up and then go back into combat. We've also dropped all our points in Dark Shroud. I was hesitant to do this in the last video as I genuinely thought that I would be too squishy without it. If you are finding yourself getting beaten up with concealment, you can go back to using Dark Shroud. Maybe it's the extra damage reduction I'm getting from gear that's compensating for the lack of Dark Shrouds. So keep this in mind when you're running with the build. You can drop concealment for Dark Shroud. However, you will lose your source of unstoppable. The rest of the tree remains the same. We're still going with Shadow and Cold Imbue and finishing with Close Quarters Combat. Lastly, in terms of gear and customization, the Paragon tree is something that I've spent a lot of time min-maxing, and I've made a few changes. We are now using the Ranger Glyph in the first tree. We only want to grab 40 Dexterity to activate that 10% damage reduction, and then we're heading straight into Cunning Stratagem, which is the second tree. Place your Exploit Glyph in here, grab the core skill damage and armor, and we can also grab 28% core skill damage up here. I've tried to put a lot of emphasis on grabbing good rare nodes that synergize well with the build. That's a large amount of the change that I've made since the previous iteration of the Paragon tree. We're still moving into Exploit Weakness. We will eventually grab this node, but for now it goes untaken. I've come down to the south and grabbed Hunter Killer, which grants me 32% increased damage to elites and also 14% movement speed after killing an elite. I really wanted to emphasize movement speed on this build as we are a speed farmer. We also get the 20% vulnerable damage from these two nodes as we do just meet the attribute requirements. Moving into the Eldritch Bounty tree, we've adjusted some pathing and placed Infusion in the glyph socket. We've also dropped the Imbuer node up at the top here as we are not going to get to that 440 strength. So it just doesn't make sense to spend up to 6 points to get up there. Then we're moving to the right and we're heading to Cheap Shot. Cheap Shot is a phenomenal talent that I'm actually only about 8 points away from reaching, which is going to give me 25% more damage because of how often we CC enemies. But the reason I wanted to take this board as well as this is there are some very powerful nodes. As mentioned earlier in the video, the mobs that we're fighting are always healthy. So these modifiers down here are an absolute premium. Typically you'll get 5 to 7% damage from a node like this, but for the healthy enemies, we get up to 12.5. So these are fantastic pickups, as well as grabbing a little bit of armor for some more durability down here. In a perfect world, we'd get to 520 int to activate this, but I don't think it's going to happen. So that's the Paragon tree for now. I will leave a level 100 version in the description. I will not forget to do it this time, I promise.